Let's play a game to determine what our idols are in life. Just a fun, lighthearted game. Jordan Peterson recently sat with Dr. Arthur Brooks, and they discussed a game surrounding the writings of Thomas Aquinas. And the goal of the game is to determine your idol. Take a look.
So I say, okay, let's play a game. And the way to do this is not to say what's your idol, but to eliminate the ones that they're not your idol.
Okay.
Do you want to play?
Sure.
So let's play the game. And maybe we'll learn something about ourselves in the process. Maybe we'll even see if this connects to the scripture. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to Wise Disciple. My name is Nate Sala, and I'm helping you become the effective Christian that you are meant to be, which includes understanding your idols so that you can overcome them. Amen. Make sure to like, sub, and share this one around, but only if it blesses you.
So I play a game with my students. It's called What's My Idol? This is what one of the very first sessions of the class. What's my idol? Where I take them through a little bit of Aquinas. They read a little bit of Aquinas. And I say, look, this is the first modern, really great behavioral scientist. Is St.
A little bit of Aquinas never hurt nobody.
Thomas Aquinas. And it's, don't read it for the religious parts. Let's read it for the behavioral parts of this. And I say, okay, he says that the idols that you're going to chase are ultimately, there's going to be one that attracts you more than any other.
Yeah, right.
And that when you do, you'll always do the things that you later regret. That's the thing about it. Okay, and that's behavior.
That's what makes them idols.
I know.
Right, they beckon falsely in the present.
And that's very empirically robust. A very empirically robust assertion, of course. We know this from all the literature that, that when people chase these idols, that they're ultimately, they don't get what they wanted.
Right,
and
they're self-defeating.
Have a lot of regret.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, let's play a game. And the way to do this is not to say what's your idol, but to eliminate the ones that they're not your idol.
Okay.
You want to play?
Sure.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Let's play. Let's do this together, you and I. Okay. I don't know if you need to get out scratch paper or something. I've got something to write on right here. I don't know what this game is. I don't know what's going to happen. Now I'm starting to realize, you're going to discover what my struggle is. Okay. I guess I'm fine with that. So we'll go on this journey together, you and I.
So money, power, pleasure, honor. Mm-hmm. And honor is not what we say with my Marine children, which is to serve with honor. That means to be honored.
Yeah.
And so
the
that
narcissistic
means, so that means fame or what we have in academia, which is prestige. Mm-hmm. To walk in and people say, oh, it's Jordan Peterson who wrote that paper. Mm-hmm. That paper that got the award last year, or whatever it happens to be. Mm-hmm. Or the admiration of strangers or the admiration of the right group of people, right? Mm-hmm. Which we want. It's your lobsters, right? That raises serotonin levels. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, you got it? Money, power, pleasure, and honor. 4 concepts. I take it 4 potential idols in your life. All right, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so think of those 4, and then let's think of the one you would first eliminate, which doesn't mean you don't have it at all, but rather that you have the population mean level of it. So if you got rid of money, for example, you wouldn't be poor. You just have exactly the population mean amount of that.
Okay. So one of these we do need to get rid of. Okay. And we don't get rid of it entirely. It just reduces to the amount that everyone else has. I think I know what my answer is. Do you? Play along with me in the comments. I'm curious to see what you come up with. My answer is money, by the way. Let's see what happens.
So you wouldn't be there would be no deprivation whatsoever. Money, power, pleasure, fame. Which one do you kick away?
Power.
Why?
I'm not interested in exerting control over others' voluntary actions.
So if I were you're the clinical psychologist and I'm just a working class economist, but I would say that the reason for that is because you hate when people have power over you.
Well, that's certainly an indication of the undesirability of power. That's my lived experience of I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate being told what to do.
Not everybody hates that.
Yes, I understand that.
People who really like power actually are not bothered that much when people have power over them because it feels legitimate inherently. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So you find that totalitarians are pretty comfortable when they're in totalitarian systems. They would just like to be the totalitarian.
Right.
So dictators admire dictators.
Funny, I was just writing about exactly that this morning. It's like, well, this is part of our misunderstanding of totalitarian systems.
Yeah.
Everyone is striving to be free except the bully on the top. Like, no, it's bullies all the way down.
I know.
Yeah.
So Jordan Peters' answer is power. Again, what's your answer? By the way, who was it that said The power is the motivation behind what we do as a people. Who said that? It was Adler, I think, right? One of the leaders of the 3 Viennese schools of psychotherapy, Alfred Adler. He said that one of the central motivators for what we do as a people is power. We seek power. And not exactly in the way that Peterson and Brooks are talking about it here, although, I mean, it could manifest itself like that. Anyway, I'm digressing. Now, the reason I said money is because I grew up incredibly poor. My parents were high school graduates in the 1970s, and they chased jobs quite a bit. I mean, that was the reality of the situation when I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s. I remember this one time, golly, we lived in a house that had half a roof. This was in Los Lunas, New Mexico, out in the country. And the house had no plumbing. It was pretty rough, and we sometimes had to rely on food from the local church. So I know what it's like to barely have any money. And, even now as a college graduate, I have a couple of degrees under my belt. Money has never been, I don't stress about it. I don't worry about it. So I'd get rid of that first. Again, how about you?
Okay, so now we've established that about you.
Yeah,
right? You
okay.
kicked away power.
Yeah.
You got 3 left: money, pleasure, and honor. What's next?
I think I know. He's
Pleasure,
thinking.
probably. Pleasure? No, money, probably.
Money. Why?
Yeah. Taste is an excellent substitute for money. Like you're talking about the population mean of money.
Population mean of money.
If you're
$75,000
wise and discerning, that you're rich with that amount of money.
Yeah. And I would also postulate,
Agreed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that given the fact that your material success, among other things, has taught you, using your self-awareness as a behavioral scientist, that there's not that much nice stuff that you can get with money. It's really not that interesting.
Well,
Yeah, that is true. He brings up a really good point. The older that I get, the less and less that I desire material things. I remember being 30, which was a very long time ago now because I'm so old. But I remember I always desired the latest iPhone. Is anybody like me? I don't know what was going on with me at the time. That since has changed, but I'm just saying, like back then when the new one came out, I don't know. I had to have it. I can't explain it. It was embarrassing. I just really desired it and I thought about it. Now, though, none of that really matters. As a matter of fact, for Christmas and my birthday every year, the number one thing that I keep asking for is not a present, but an experience with the people that I love. And what I mean by that is like a nice time together over a meal or, going to the beach together or something like that. So in other words, I'm learning at 46 years old that what matters more to me is time. And time, it doesn't cost money.
The big advantage to me of having money is that it opens up avenues of possibility. It makes some things easier.
Right.
Medical care.
It does.
But it opens up avenues.
Sources of unhappiness.
Yes. And it opens up avenues of adventure.
Right.
That would otherwise be impossible.
But they're not the things you care about the most.
Well, there's other ways of doing them.
Yeah.
There's other ways of doing them that are they equally valuable? Sufficiently so that was my second choice anyways.
The things that I love the most are not things you buy. If people say,
amen. This right here, this is old man wisdom. This is what you say after your beard turns white, When you're 19, you desire material things, but not when the hair gets thin and the hair turns white. You know what I mean? That's good.
If I could keep everything in a knapsack, I would be detached. Mm-hmm. And I say, no, I would still rent everything I want. The whole point is that buying stuff is not that interesting.
Well, money is useful to me because it enables opportunity.
Right.
It's not particularly useful to me because I can buy stuff with it. I mean, I buy some things, but look, culture like ours, you can buy virtually everything you need for nothing if you pay attention.
I know.
Virtually everything is free. Food, maybe not. But
I have a whole lecture on how to buy happiness with money, and you have to go exactly against your limbic system. Why? Because your limbic system tells you to accumulate resources beyond what you need to show your evolutionary fitness, such that you can get more mates and propagate.
Right. You
need more buffalo jerky and animal and flints in your cave. And the guy, anyway. Okay, so
I'm going to sidestep the evolution comment because I don't buy it, but I will say this. They're right about money. Money is meant to be an instrument. This is a biblical concept that is taught. As a matter of fact, in Luke 16, Jesus gave a parable, and the first time people read it, or the second or third or 10th, it's just a little strange, on the first few go-rounds, right? But the more that you chew on it and you meditate on it, there is a biblical principle here that is key, and it connects to what they're talking about. There's a parable in Luke 16 where Jesus highlights the actions of a dishonest manager before he's fired. Do you remember this? So there's a dishonest manager of a wealthy person's estate, and he's about to be let go, and he realizes that, hey, out on his own, he's not going to be able to take care of himself. He can't work. He can't do what is necessary. And so what he decides to do is to act shrewdly in order to settle accounts that are outstanding with various people so that they would welcome him into their homes once he's lost his job, so that he's not destitute. And so he goes one by one and he settles debt with all these people and clears their accounts, right? Thus making friends with them in the process because they're no longer under the weight of debt. And then Jesus says this very interesting line. Look at this. And I tell you, verse 9, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth. So that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. Interesting. So just like the dishonest manager, money itself is unrighteous and worldly in that sense. But Jesus says, use it. But use it for a good purpose. Use it so that your righteousness will usher people into eternal dwellings. And they in turn will welcome you into the eternal dwellings, right? Because that will outlast the money. Your relationships with people, as you bless them and help them enter eternal dwellings, that's where the true value is, not the money. Money is the instrument, right? Now, this is very Jewish, and it points to hospitality, right? The type of hospitality that Abraham showed the strangers in Genesis chapter 18. But the point trades on this concept about money. Money's just a tool, guys. It's instrumental for a purpose. Many people get caught up in the pursuit of money for money's sake, and that's greed. But pursuing money is not actually bad if you have the right use for it, if you have the right motivation and you know what the purpose is for it. One of the questions that I always ask when we talk about these things, and I'm sort of trying to relay this to my sons particularly, is you got to ask the question, what is money for? Right? I know some people out there who are like, here's my goal. I'm going to make 25% more next year than I did this year. Okay. What's that extra 25% going to be for? I try to live my life in a manner where I have an answer to those questions. I know what the purpose is for what we're trying to pursue, particularly when it comes to money, or else I'm not going to do it. Right? And that's what I mean. Pursuing money in order to use it to bless others and serve God, that's what God actually wants. You know? There's another question too, and I think this is all connected, by the way. And now we're way off we're into the fields here, but it's a question that some Christians wrestle with, right? And it's this: can a Christian be a millionaire? And the answer is yes, because again, it's not about how much money they make; it's about how they use the money as a tool to obey Jesus. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that that's easy, that the more money you accumulate, that you start getting into these weird ideas in your mind about, well, I am doing this for righteous reasons. Like, you got to be extremely careful because greed is an ugly monster. But nevertheless, technically the answer is, yeah, a Christian can be a millionaire. As long as they can answer the purpose for the money that God has granted them. So I actually agree with Brooks here. This is great.
You got two left, pleasure and honor. Now it's hot in here because these are things that you like.
Yeah.
And this is normal.
Yeah.
But you got to get rid of one and go to the population mean, which is a...
Oh, yeah. So by the way, my second one is that I'd get rid of power. So money and power. And I'll explain that later.
Pleasure, probably next.
Yeah. And now we've established what your temptation is. Now we've established that doesn't mean that you can't tame it, but you must know it. You must say to yourself, honor. When I do the wrong thing, it's because I pursue honor. By the way, I'm exactly like you. Why?
It's too bad for you.
Well, it's too bad for my wife and yours.
Yeah, and your wife. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's because, I hate people having power over me. I don't want to have power over others. I was a chief executive for 11 years. And the thing I hated was when people called me boss. It made me intensely uncomfortable. It made me feel embarrassed, even humiliated when people said boss, because I felt like they were setting up a hierarchy. It felt passive aggressive, even when it wasn't, because of this aversion.
Right.
Money. Okay, great.
Well, if you're someone's boss, it's not obvious who the slave is.
Right.
Right. Because if I have to tell you what to do, then I have to tell you what to do. Right. It's hard enough to get myself to do things, much less bother with you.
I know.
Maybe there's some temporary thrill in ordering people around, although it's not a thrill I've ever appreciated.
No.
But I'd rather that you did your own thing.
I hate dictatorship.
I feel the same way. Totally agree.
Dictatorships, and I wouldn't want to be the dictator. Is the bottom line. Money. Okay. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. Pleasure. I'm a very self-disciplined person. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I work out for an hour, and it hurts every day before dawn.
How old are you?
60. And I'm in better health than when I was 30. And part of it is because I'm not a sensualist, because I can actually do that. I mean, I like feeling good, but it's not high on my list of priorities. You know what tempts me? This. That's what tempts me. And I know it's true. And I know I have that particular tendency, and that knowledge is power. Why? Because that knowledge is being stored in the episodic memory of my hippocampus, and it's accessible by my prefrontal cortex, and I can use it to manage my limbic system. And that's being fully alive. As far as I'm concerned, that's being fully alive. And when my students understand that, they can not just avoid errors, they can feel like they have control. They can feel like they have a sword and shield on their hero's journey. That's what that.
Yeah, so we know what their struggles are, right? Now, let me tell you how this goes for me. By the way, what's your idol? Did you do the calculation here? Let me know. So great video. So my next one that I'd let go of is power. Why? Because I feel uncomfortable telling people what to do. I actually feel way more comfortable inspiring people, or at least trying, because I know that people are not robots. You can't crawl inside their minds and force them to do anything, So to me, being in a position of authority where someone wields it like a tyrant, to me, that's thoroughly disgusting. And so that leaves pleasure and honor for me, well, yeah. Pleasure is the next one to go. Like I said, I've learned to live with very little. And, I just in my regular routine, I tend to do the same things over and over again. I don't, at this late stage, I don't pursue baubles all that much. I did mention experiences a moment ago, that I desire that instead of presence. But so what I meant by experiences was that the people that I care about are with me. Not that I'm having an experience of jet setting out to Abu Dhabi or something like that. You know what I mean? And so that leaves for me on the page honor. And apparently that's my struggle, which is interesting, guys. That is, golly, that's interesting. I have a weird relationship with accolades. I grew up in a difficult home environment. And, I realize even today, I desire affirmation from people because I really desired it from my parents, particularly from my father. And I didn't get it. And that, it sent me on a journey that, weirdly enough, has put me on stage talking to people. It's weird, isn't it? It is weird. But the Lord uses it, you know? He uses it all. And I constantly have to pray and submit and give this struggle over to my Heavenly Father so that my motives, they remain biblical, you know, particularly for this ministry. There's actually there's a teaching in Philippians that I resonate with quite a bit. It's in Philippians 2. Look at this. In verse 3, it says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." Now, Paul goes on to talk about how Jesus is the ultimate example of humility, how he didn't count equality to be a thing to be grasped, right? Emptied himself, took the form of a servant. It's a beautiful passage, really. And it's a great reminder. But it's also, for me, it's really become a modus operandi, you know? And how it plays out practically is I'm never the most important person in any room that I walk into. Not only does the Bible teach this concept, it's also just my philosophy of relationships. And this outlook has been quite a blessing, actually, you know? So usually when I meet people for the very first time, I'm just asking them questions and putting the focus on them, you know? And it does a lot to undercut my struggle. I remember my wife and I started joining a fellowship group, and we were there for a good, I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks before these people finally figured out what I do. Like, you know, and it's because I was just, you know, I don't lead off with, oh yeah, I'm a YouTuber, you know, like I'm more interested in what other people are doing and what the Lord is doing in their life, you know? So anyway, that's probably enough about me. But honor is my struggle. So curious exercise. Thank you for going through this with me. How about you though? Right? I sort of bared my soul here a bit. How did you identify your struggle? What is it? Let me know in the comments below. By the way, just as an aside, stick close to the Jesus in the Gospels, because Jesus is going to teach on every one of these struggles: money, power, pleasure, honor, right? Particularly take a close look at the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5-7. I think it's going to bless you. All right, friends, in this video, I used the Logos Bible app. I partnered with Logos because I love the app. You should definitely check out, I've got a discount for you. You go to logos.com/wise disciple. Try it out. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's going to bless you. Don't forget to keep the party going. You can go over to the Patreon, and I'm doing a Bible study every single morning over there. If you're into the biblical insights that I provide, you're definitely going to love the Bible study. Also, these videos are there on Patreon before they drop on YouTube, so you can go check that out. The link is below. If you're interested in learning biblical Greek or Hebrew, I encourage you to go check out BibLingo. I've also partnered with them because they've created a very helpful and fun app to learn the biblical languages. Just click on the link below, but make sure to put in my special code WISEDisciple10 at checkout. Hey guys, I'm going to return soon with more videos, but in the meantime, I'll say bye for now.